overrides are only going to sustain us for a period of time. So, that's my position.
Two more quick things. For those of you who don't know, I think our enrollment has gone up, what, about 1,000 in the last 12, 13 years?
I know, yeah, when I was on the Board of Selectmen back a long time ago, back in 91, 92, our enrollment, I believe, was about 1,850 students. And I think it's about 2,800 students now.
Right, it's over 20.
So if you consider the inflation factor moving forward, and you consider 1,000 more students in the system,
In 15 years.
and the collective bargaining increases that we have to naturally go through. There are people in this room that were here not too long ago, a year, 18 months, a couple of years ago. You know, we were trying to hold the line on collective bargaining, that were in our faces about, giving more and more and more. And now we're back here, and that's the biggest factor in our budget is the collective bargaining. And our teachers should be paid fairly and competitively with everybody else, and I think they are. But in order to keep up with that, we're looking at a 5% increase every year, just the salaries alone.
The other thing I want to say is I think the Board of Selectmen has been extremely supportive of us. I appreciate what they're trying to do this year because it's not easy on their side either. But I made this point at our finance planning team meeting a couple of weeks ago is what you're really looking at here is either way you're going to pay for an override. It's either going to be a selective override where you pay for trash, you add more to your trash fee, or if something's cut out of the rec budget, what do you think is going to pay that extra fee? Maybe instead of $15 per sport, it's $50 per sport when your kid plays soccer. So either way, you're looking at an override. One way, you're going to pay more to have your kid play high school sports. None of that's tax deductible. I personally would rather put that on my tax bill and deduct it on my tax form every year. So that, I don't understand, and I know how fees get started, but it's gotten to a point now where it's pay-as-you-go society. And that's not the way I was brought up, that it should be a pay-as-you-go society. Everybody should kind of chip in for the common good, and I know that's probably too altruistic, but it's really the way I feel. And I think what the selectmen are doing is they're trying to help us to come up with ways to help us meet that budget shortfall. But in the meantime, we're going to be paying it more one way or the other. And that's why I support the override, because maybe we won't have to pay more in trash fees, and maybe we won't have to pay more in rec fees and things like that. So, David, you want to make that? Or did someone want to make a comment? Bob?
Well, you haven't answered my question.
Right.
And I'd help you. And I want to remind the school committee that last year, when we put our eggs in the override budget, the approach to an override, 1 year and 3 years, the selectmen had moved $100,000 from the town budget to the school budget, and we asked, and we wanted to put more, and the answer was no, we want to go forward with the override. My concern, and why I've been pushing so hard to get additional money into the school budget, is that if an override doesn't pass, we haven't helped the school system out. We haven't done our job. For me to get the board to come together, because we have a bunch of different ideas of how to bring this together, right? I have to have some idea of what your priorities are. And if you can't articulate them, and I understand the issues, because things can change, right? Then somebody's got to come to that meeting Wednesday night and defend the situation and help me convince the board to allocate additional funds to the school budget. Not that any of us want to hold you up from getting all of these funds, but we can't do it out of the budget. We can't get to the $870,000.
Well, we can and we will articulate our priorities. I don't see why we can't do that. The problem is this. If you're suggesting that the priorities aren't what you're willing to fund, then that's too bad, because that's what our priorities are.
No, and I think
We're not
that's what
gonna-
I've heard.
We're not going to change our
Well,
priorities
you're talking,
based on
now
what
you're
the
talking
select-
about one member, right?
Right.
But they haven't heard the whole story.
Right.
They didn't hear what was said tonight.
No, we will do that. It's just that it may not be what your board wants to hear, and if that's the case, if they're going to try to pick and choose what those priorities should be, then...
The only group that's been in the face, that's been fairly outspoken, is some of the board members have told us, those that have complained about kids are getting released early, they're not getting a full education, they're sitting in study halls, okay? So that's what the board's reacting to, that, you know, if we're gonna cut some additional services in the town side, because we're down on that when we get to providing additional money, right? Then, you know, what are you gonna do with it? And if it isn't going to take away the issue that we're hearing, right, then obviously there's concern about it. And if, in fact, if that issue, if you want to do something different, and you're talking to the entire community here, and they understand, then the issue before the board goes away.
But you heard the response to that issue. Very
I
articulate
heard it,
response
yes.
from some people here tonight. And let me say this, let me call a spade a spade. There's 60 concerned parents in this room, very concerned parents. We have 2,800 kids in the school system. And I think that the parents in this room are very, very concerned over the programs that were cut at the elementary school level. But let me say this, there are some, okay, there are some parents out there that are just inconvenienced by the early release on Wednesday. And they're upset about it, because it's an inconvenience, okay? And we can't look at the inconvenience as a controlling factor in us establishing our priority. We have to look at the programs that were cut at the elementary school, but we also have to look at the situation at the middle school, and we have to look at the situation at the high school. And that's what we're gonna do, and I think if we establish that priority list on Wednesday, we'll be able to give support as to why those are our priorities. But it may not be what the Board of Selectmen wants to hear.
Anybody else? I'll give one last chance, okay? Marcy and then Laura.
I'll be quick, I promise.
Oh, okay, Marcy.
Well, mostly I want to say touche to what Bob Azzari said. When you're looking to balance the needs across general government and the school department, to balance that, you need to know what service you're going to be able to provide to students and to general government at the same time. I understand what Mrs. Vaca said. I understand that whatever funds the school committee receives will be spent well and toward the best balance of education for all the students in the system. But on the other hand, I understand the reality that if there's $200,000 more to be transferred from general government to the school side, what is that going to hurt in general government, and what is that going to buy on the school department? And as a voter at, at town meeting, and as someone who is trying to be involved in the process and learn what's going on as we move along, I need to understand that, to know what to support. I think each and every member of the Board of Selectmen needs to understand what they are buying and how the services are going to be balanced for all members of the North Reading community, school and general government. I hope the override passes too, but I will not pin the student education on the word hope. I need a fallback position that's the best balance. And if what the Board of Selectmen is asking is what programs, personnel, services will be put in place if they are able to transfer more funds to them, I think that's a question that needs to be answered.
Marcy, I am not
Agreed.
but
Agreed.
I am not going to commit to certain programs in March, and then in September not be able to do that. I am absolutely not going to do that.
What if you commit to a program in June or August and a student moves in that has $100,000 placement and $65,000 in transportation?
But I'm not
Of
committing
course,
that
that's
to
a
get
mandate,
budget
and you're
money.
gonna have to change. But I think as of this moment, what would you do?
I think we've been very clear, it's staff and programs. And we've cut some programs, we mentioned restoring programs, and we also talked about replacing some that should move our kids forward. And staff to staff those programs and staff to look at class sizes. We haven't mentioned custodians, we haven't mentioned administration, we haven't mentioned support staff. We're talking direct services to children. Classroom teachers for programs and class size, programs that have been restored and or should be replaced. Anything more than that is really looking very specific. What I'm interpreting it is, the Board of Selectmen want to know, are we gonna put the
Right.
art, the music, and the PE at the levels required to restore elementary programs, thus the Wednesday half days? We can't be that specific. we shouldn't commit to anything that specific. But we are willing to commit that these monies will go to programs and staff and everything else. No textbooks, no computers, nothing else. And I think that should be enough at this point in time.
I hope you all attend the selectmen's meeting on Wednesday and convince them
Yep,
of that.
yeah.
I have actually a question for Bob, but perhaps for everyone here. You've asked the school committee and asked me to prioritize out of the 870 in increments of 100 or 200,000. And this will be a conversation over the next, I'm sure, 24 hours, if not tonight. But let us say that $350,000 could be found by the town. Does that negate the need then for an override?
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. The concern, the reason why I think
And
we
we-
should, if we can come up with additional funds to put in the line item budget, right? In case an override doesn't pass, that doesn't mean that it changes my desire to fully fund what the school department needs. It's just that we learned a lesson last year, and maybe this year's better, right? But we learned a lesson, and the school department could have had additional money last year.
I don't
I
recall
don't remember that, but-
Yes,
I-
and you could have had additional money. We were going there.
Excuse me, Mel, can I say something?
Yeah, that's all.
I'd like to know why the selectmen can't commit those funds anyway.
I agree.
No matter what we're asking for.
Well, you'll have to
because
talk to the other
school
members,
system
you'll have to
needs
talk
it.
to the other members.
I know
of the
that
board.
that you are not the one who's, you know, asking this, you're asking this on behalf of other members of the board. I know that it's not you personally. But it's just, that's what just boggles my mind is why can't they commit to those funds as our fallback position anyway, no matter what we're going to do with them, because we're going to put them to good use. That's what I don't understand,
you need to-
and that's
you
why
need to
I
get
think
that
people
message
need to go
across.
to the meeting.
You need to get that message across to the board. I'm sorry, I'm sorry if I didn't answer you.
I just want to be clear then, from my standpoint as superintendent, that a 350,000, if that's what potentially will be discussed on Wednesday, will not wash away the very important need to rebuild the confidence in the school district, and it's not just on one piece of it.
No, I mean, no, I think you have full support from the board on putting your budget override question on the ballot. By the way, that question, we have to vote on it before town meeting. We will be doing that on the 31st of March at our Monday meeting. And that's got to do with the 35 days notice and the way town meeting and the town election fall. There's just not enough time after a town meeting vote to put it on the ballot.
Laura, you had another.
Just a quick comment. Early in the budget process, the school committee, to their great credit, had several meetings, and I remember being in this room with Carl Nelson and Dr. Trojan putting little dots on sheets of paper. And I'm assuming, we may have been one of the first to do, here to do that. Did you get a sense from those exercises what the priorities were? I mean, did it mean anything to you?
Well,
I'm
we got
not
a sense
suggesting for a
because-
minute. I understand that we all have our, but did that help you?
No, we did, but 99% of the people who came were elementary school parents. So you can't, so we got a
Okay,
sense
well,
from
I'm just
that.
asking the question. I mean,
Yes,
It did.
to a
when-
point.
Yes.
When we explained the mandated programs and you had to spend your stickers and
Right.
that mandated, I think we really helped educate people and that simply is not an option. You're going to spend